If you think the idea of that beautiful business of yours expanding overseas is a pipe dream, then think again, my friend. International business strategist and lawyer Cynthia Dearin may just change your mind. It's a far-reaching episode 599 of the 13-year-old, award-winning Small Business Big Marketing Podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of international marketing. I'm your host, Timbo Reid, and I have an insatiable curiosity for uncovering marketing ideas that help businesses just like yours, yes, yours, to grow. How do I do that? By having in-depth conversations with successful business founders from around this crazy world. You, infinitely more importantly, you're a motivated business owner, ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. And that is exactly why this show exists. As per usual, team, there's marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Little bit of housekeeping before we head off and meet today's guest. Next week is episode 600. Whoop, whoop. And I got to tell you, I have got a fantastic guest. I'll tell you who it is at the end of this episode. I know you can scan to the end. I know that, but don't. Hold out. But I will say he's just signed a film deal with Paramount Pictures that portrays his life and business dealings. And boy, oh boy, what an interview. Quick reminder to join the Small Business Big Marketing tribe on Facebook. There's over 2,000 business owners just like you, chatting with each other, supporting each other. I go in there, offer my 2 cents worth. Sometimes it's worthwhile, sometimes not so much. But head over to Facebook and look up Small Business Big Marketing Tribe and join. And remember, we have a hotline. You can call me anytime. 0480 015 150. You can share a marketing idea. You can tell me what you think of the podcast or me, whatever you want to do. But give us a call, just like physiotherapist Catherine did.
Hi, Timbo. It's Catherine here. I'm a physiotherapist and mum of 3, and I've got the Fitness Mama podcast, and my business is helping women exercise safely and care for their bodies during pregnancy and after birth recovery. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the podcast. I think every week there's some amazing episodes, and you've really encouraged me to get out of my comfort zone, get my message out there to really help women during their pregnancy and motherhood journey, and to tell my story too. So I just wanted to send my thanks. And yeah, I look forward to 2022 and what more is in store. So my website is fitnessmama.com. That's FITNESTMAMA.com. Thanks once again, Timbo. I really do appreciate it. Bye.
Hey, thank you so much, Catherine, for taking the time to call the hotline. Well done to you for getting out of your comfort zone. I'm honoured to have played a small part in that. But as we all know, that is where the magic happens. And also well done, Catherine, on getting a podcast, a physiotherapist with a podcast. It's called Fitness Mama. I love the idea. I think more business owners probably should have a podcast, hey? Wouldn't you agree? They seem to work. Now, one of the things I'm passionate about is helping you identify additional revenue streams for your business. That's why I've decided to get international business lawyer and the founder of Dearin and Associates, Cynthia Dearin, on to the show. You see, for the last 23 years, Cynthia's been on a mission to help business owners to scale internationally and amplify their impact on the world. Pretty good mission. Wouldn't you agree? And she's well qualified to do so, having worked in the UK, the US, Europe, the Middle East, as an Australian diplomat and management consultant. She also spent 3 years as the CEO of the Australian Arab Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She's done a fair bit. Plus, we haven't finished. She's the author of 2 books. I love the title of the first one, Camels, Sheikhs and Billionaires. I'm guessing it's non-fiction. Who knows? And the one we talk about today, which is titled, much more seriously, business beyond borders. So right now, I ask you to lose any limiting beliefs you have about your business not being suited to overseas expansion, as Cynthia shares how to bridge the cultural divide and build trust, why businesses need an international strategy, how to navigate the challenges of global teams, mistakes to avoid, how to find your ideal international clients, and of course, the rules of international marketing and pricing. Enough from me. Let's go and meet Cynthia. Now, Cynthia, help me here.
Yes.
Moving your business across into another international market, it sounds very complicated. There are things to consider: supply chains, culture, pricing, logistics. There's just, it seems like a massive move. So I guess let's start by understanding, what mindset should someone listening to this, a business owner listening to this, take?
I think it almost has to be like bipolar disorder. So on one hand, you need to have a really big vision, and you have to be very clear about what you are trying to get done and why, and really know why in depth. And on the other hand, you have to kind of temper that massive enthusiasm and desire for world domination with, an understanding of the fact that it is quite a complex process, and you need to kind of restrain yourself from grabbing all the lollies in the shop at, one go, and really working on one thing at a time. So, you have to be like expansive in your thinking, but really structured in your process is what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I get the bipolar reference now. I'm going to lose a few listeners with your answer to this question, but it's best only listen to this if it's relevant to your business. Like, what are we talking here? What does moving your business overseas into other international markets mean? Is it simply an e-commerce play? Is it about setting up shops in faraway countries? What are we talking about?
Look, the answer is it depends. So, one, it depends on what industry you are in and what you sell. So if you sell bikinis or sparkly earrings, then you could do a pure e-commerce play. Arguably, you could just keep producing in your home country.
How did you know what I was selling?
How did I know what you were selling? Well, intuition.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, so that's a simple e-commerce play.
Yeah.
But, my listeners are very broad. We've got everything from chiropractors, accountants, of course, there's manufacturers, financial, retail. There's such a broad. Who doesn't this apply to?
Well, somebody asked me this the other day, and I said, look, maybe if you're a mechanic or a hairdresser or you own a corner shop, it's not going to be great for you. But for everybody else, there's a possibility. But then even if you are a mechanic or a hairdresser, if you think about it, there are famous hairdressers who franchise their brand all over the world. So, in theory, practically any business can take the concept and apply it. But, you've got to work out, are we doing an e-commerce play? Are we using distributors? Are we doing contract manufacturing in a third market or in the market that we want to sell to? Are we setting up a greenfield factory? Are we setting up offices? Are we doing a retail play? Maybe we have flagship stores backed by e-commerce. There are dozens of permutations and ways that you can do it.
I told you it was complicated. That's why you're here.
That's why you have to kind of go think through it one step at a time. And
yeah, which is what we're going to do.
Yeah, people get confused and overwhelmed because they try and think about the whole thing in one go. And you have to take it apart piece by piece and really attack a piece at a time. It's
such a great learning. In any part of life, really. Forget, moving your business internationally, but just like chunking stuff down is such a, it was something we talk to, you talk to young kids about. Chunk it down, do bit by bit. Otherwise, it's just going to be overwhelmed. Tell me, as a business owner, unless you've maxed out the potential of your local market, why would an Aussie business look to expand internationally?
Well, look, again, it depends. Sometimes people come up with amazing concepts and they don't fly at home. So I don't know if you know Aussie Bum, which is the Aussie company that essentially sends you a pair of undies every month. That is an Aussie company, right? But now if you drive around Sydney, there used to be a huge billboard on Military Road going through Mossman that had a big bum on it, and some undies on the bum.
Was the tagline, "Does my bum look big on this billboard"?
No, I think it just said Aussie Bum, if I remember on the back of it, something. But it was a pretty sizable billboard. They started off here in Australia, and the concept just tanked. did not work, didn't take off. Everyone's like, what's this subscription undies thing? So the founder went, oh, stuff it. And he took the idea to the States and it took off. And he eventually brought it back here, but he did that process completely in reverse.
So if Aussie Bums, if that's a subscription-based business, that's an e-commerce business, how do you, I mean, it's just a website and that website can be accessed from anyone in the world. When he, in taking that kind of business overseas, was it simply a matter, obviously you need your distribution sorted out and all that kind of stuff, but after that, was it simply a matter of directing your Facebook ads and your Instagram ads into other countries? Was it that simple?
I don't know exactly how Aussie Bum did it, but I mean, you've got to think about, there are lots of, on the web piece, you might have a single site, but then if you get into international web design, there are multiple different ways that you can actually set up sites and pages to register different locations. So like that's a really narrow and deep field that I won't get into here, but there are a variety of ways you can do that. You need to think about your intellectual property. So, is your trademark registered all around the world? Are your industrial secrets protected? If you, not for Aussie Bomb, but if you sell something that needs a patent, have you got patents in the countries that you're going to sell into? On the market, it can be about directing the Facebook ads. The distribution is a huge piece because depending on what you sell and the larger the stuff that you sell gets, the more important proximity to the market is. So if you're doing undies, up to a certain point, you can just DHL it. You just put it in a post pack and you sell it. But you get past a certain point, and suddenly if you've got 10,000 customers in a market, you don't want your team, you're going to have a 3PL or a distributor or a partner that you're working with. So, there's some complexity around that. And again, you got to kind of work through it a piece at a time and say, where are we going? Let's make sure the IP is protected. Let's test the market with some marketing and make sure this is actually going to work. Let's understand our ideal client and make sure the product fits. And then you test it. And then as it builds, then you work out, okay, how are we going to, can we produce enough to meet the market? How are we going to distribute it? It's a little involved.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's why Dearin and Associates do what you do, which is to help businesses, create markets overseas. Give us let's work on a case study. Might be a recent one, might be one you've worked on at some point in your career, where a small business has come to you and said, listen, I want to open up new markets. Let's start from the start.
So many. Look, I'll talk about one that we're working with at the moment, which is a product that I absolutely love. I am not a biker, but this company sells the world's first patented smart helmet. And it's, think Google Maps inside a helmet. It's kind of like a bit Google Glass.
That is so crazy. At yesterday, I've got a Vespa, and I said to my mate, we were just leaving. We just had coffee. We're hopping back on our Vespas, and looked like a couple of wankers, really. But I said to him, where I need to buy a new helmet. Where'd you get that helmet? I really liked his helmet. And he told me that yesterday afternoon, an Instagram ad came up on my feed for a smart helmet.
Okay. So
that's
maybe
crazy.
It could be the same company. These guys have come along. They have massive ambition, but they're looking at the world and they've identified a few markets and they're going, oh, where is the best opportunity going to be? How do we manage against the risk? Where's the profitability going to be? They're funded, but they're still a startup. So they're trying to work out with the resources they've got, money and team and time, how can they actually maximize that? And, I have said to them, like I do to everybody that I work with, okay, we can't do 6 markets at once. If you want to blow your business to smithereens, let's go ahead and do 6 markets at once.
Yeah.
But it's like, have you ever tried to light a fire with a magnifying glass by holding it on?
Yeah, that's all I did when I was a kid.
Yeah. Or like somebody said the other day, no, I haven't, but I used to burn ants. But either way,
ants, yes.
It takes a while, right, to light whatever's under that magnifying glass. And you can do it, but it's time and focus. Can you imagine if somebody then came along and said, right, here are 4 other little piles of twigs that you have to light. You have to do it with the same magnifying glass and you have to do it whilst maintaining the initial fire. And that's it's like virtually impossible. It's highly stressful. So you don't want to do that. So your first step is that you go through and you work out where you want to go, right? where you should be going, and you do it on the basis of data. So the way we do it is we work with clients to pick the top 5 markets that they're thinking of, and then we put together a data-driven market report. And that report breaks out details using about more than 30 indicators on where the opportunities are, what speed are these different markets growing at, what volume of these kind of products are being sold in this market, what are the risk factors, what's the foreign exchange risk, what's the cultural difference, and we map out for them where the opportunity is, where the risk is, where the profitability is likely to be. And then we sort of sit with them and say, okay, here is what the report says. Here are how these markets break out in order of, difficulty, if you like, and opportunity. Now let's twin up that information with what you already know or what resources you've got in the market. So, maybe you've got 5 markets in mind, and the one that you thought was going to be number 1 is actually number 3. So let's say you had, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand, and you said, oh, well, we definitely want to do Malaysia and then Thailand, then Singapore. Maybe Malaysia comes out number 2 or 3, but you've already got connections in Malaysia or a distributor there, or, you've already had a significant volume of orders coming in, or there's maybe the government's going to give you a grant to set up quickly. There's something that incentivizes you to go there. You match that with that objective data, and that is how you get the answer. But when you do that, what happens is, because people are often going around with the finger in the wind, they're like, well, the US is huge, heaps of opportunity, but we can't get a registration for our product for another 6 months. And this country over here, well, it's smaller, but we can get our stuff in quickly, but we don't know if the market's growing fast enough. And so you want to kind of take a lot of that guesswork out. I mean, you can never take it out to 100%, but by using data, you can get a lot clearer on what is probably going to happen.
So with your smart helmet guys, you've done that data analysis. You have identified a country.
Yes.
That is going to work best for them.
Yeah.
When you shared, what was it out of interest? What country? Just
I don't think I can actually tell you because I haven't given the report to them yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say then,
if they hear about it on your show first, they'll be like, what?
My next question was actually, what was their response when you told them the country? Was it the one they had in mind, but you don't know?
I think I do know that the country, one of the countries out of the 5 is the one that they have in mind. But the other country that they're very, very keen on has actually come last. So we will see.
It's interesting.
And what's going to happen is then everybody's going to go, oh my gosh, what will we do? But this is where we then have to sit down and say, okay, if we go for country number 1, what will that mean? If we park the other 4 just for now and we go with 1, what's that going to mean? Let's think about it from a few different angles. What does it mean in terms of the speed that we can get the product in? Have we got partnerships there? How much capital do we need to do this? If we get a huge order, can our manufacturing keep up given what's going on in the supply chains? Okay. All right. Now let's look at the next market, which has been really recommended that you hadn't even thought of. It's great for these reasons, but is it realistic for you to be able to go in there? Have you got a partner? Have you got distribution channels? Is there a community that you can sell to set up? And so it's that's how you do it.
Tell me, that's a case study that's sort of in the making because you haven't even presented the country that they are going to be going to yet. It's secret squirrel stuff.
Well, let me tell you one that worked. I have a client that I absolutely love, another Australian manufacturer. They never came to us for a market analysis because they were actually already working in market when we started working together, but they came along and they were having a few issues with sales teams in the US. Things were not working very well. They were on 8% profitability. Money was owed in a lot of different places. They were making about $3 million at the time, and they were traveling back and forth.
When you say at a time,
at the time.
Year?
At the time.
At the time.
Yeah. This is about 2 years ago. They're making about $3 million. So they had issues going on. They had some team culture issues and some working cross borders issues and some financial issues. We didn't need to do the market selection with them because that was already set up. So we attacked the problem in a different way. We looked at what was going on and said team culture, and we figured out some ways that they could improve that. We went and found them somebody in the US to help them with their sales team. So, and by the way, COVID was happening while this was on, right? So a few months after we started to work together, COVID hit and they're like, holy moly, we think the whole thing's just going to go belly up. What are we going to do? The third and really important thing that we did was that we got them to really focus on the management accounts. And this is something that a lot of small businesses don't do because it's frankly not super sexy. And who wants to look at, accounts payable, accounts receivable and inventory days? Nobody really. But we did a dashboard report for them every single month on the Australian and the US companies. And we got them to make adjustments like 2% here, 2% there, help them fix the inventory. They went from money owed everywhere and 8% profitability to coming back to me 12 months later and saying, hey, we've paid off all the debts and we've probably got an extra $500,000 in the bank. Can you help us to do a short-term financial investment? And I said, no, that's not my area of expertise.
But what a great outcome.
Can't help with that, but I can refer you on. And then we spoke a few weeks ago, 2 years after we started working together, maybe 2.5, they're now a $6 million company.
Wow. That's obviously in most part due to their overseas expansion, or actually they're already over there, but getting control and in control their overseas activity. Did it impact positively their business back here?
Yeah, it did. And this is often what you see. When you start to do the overseas piece, so much more rigor is required, especially if you're working with me, because I'm going to make you go through and look at everything.
Oh, you're the matron of
is it working?
Overseas expansion for small business.
I don't like that word,
but you are. What Nurse Ratchet from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I've got you.
So, what happens is you look at that stuff and then suddenly people go, oh, well, it's not really working like that in the domestic business. And then we say, well, look, guys, we need to fix that. Because if you've got chaos at the systems level and you try and scale, all that happens is you scale the chaos and you make yourself a worse situation.
You know what? It's just like entering a really big award. Like I've been a judge on the Telstra Business Awards, and one of the feedback that I would often get from those applying or entering was that win, lose or draw, the rigor that was involved in actually entering. We're talking, 100-page entry forms, which sounds incredibly boring and probably is, but it forces you to get your systems right. It forces you to get all your management policies right, your culture, all these things that need attention. So it sounds like the same here. Expanding overseas also requires you to get all your ducks in a row here, because if they're not in a row here, there's no reason they're going to be in a row anywhere else in the world. That's
right. And look, it's not my research, but there's really well-documented research which says that companies that manage to go global and succeed at it, they generate more money, obviously, because they're selling to more people. They have higher profit margins. They are better places to work, and they're more innovative. So, it just forces you out of being lazy because you're in a very hyper-competitive global environment. If you're not good, then you just don't survive.
Is there a profile of a typical business owner, Cynthia, that is, has a higher likelihood of succeeding than one who doesn't? I'm guessing the Nurse Ratchet in you, someone comes into your office, can you tell straight away that's like, nah, this is not going to work for you?
Sometimes I can. Like sometimes people are just not coachable, right? Part of what we do, I don't like to call what we do coaching, and I don't like to call it consulting because it's neither. It's coach salting. Like it's some blend of training people.
That's a fence-sitting term if ever I heard one.
Coach salty. Well, look, it's giving people intellectual property and frameworks and templates and showing them stuff. But at the same time, it's trying to give them a reality check, hold their feet to the fire, and really push and encourage them along. So, again, I think if you don't have a big picture vision, you're not going to succeed. Somebody who comes in with nickel and dime thinking is going to struggle. You have to think big, but you also have to be able to get very, very focused, able to delay gratification, able to say, I see 6 markets that could do great stuff for us, but we're not going to pursue 6, we're going to pursue 1. So, stripping it back and just getting super, super blinkers on, laser focused, that's the successful global business. Look at he's no longer with us, but the guy who founded IKEA, unpronounceable Danish name, great guy. Just Google IKEA founder. He did the same business his entire life. He didn't get distracted. He didn't have shiny object syndrome. He did flat pack furniture. He basically invented flat pack furniture, and he just stuck at it. And sometimes it didn't go very well, especially in the first 15 years or so. But he was relentless. in pursuit of the goal, and he got there. And now it's a gigantic company, and you know what? It's still privately held. It's everywhere, and it's not listed.
As is Aldi, as is Mars. I find that amazing. Huge companies like that, like they're owned by families, and and they started small. IKEA started with one store. Aldi started with one store. I think it's fascinating,
And that's why, in theory, anybody could do this. Now, 99.9% of people won't.
The only reason they can't is because one of the things you said earlier is they're going to need to delay gratification. Now, we live in a society where that is absolutely impossible. We cannot possibly delay gratification. So you're going to have to overcome that somehow by telling them that there is immediate gratification in heading overseas with your business. Good luck with that.
I like to paint the big picture, but I think, you got to be realistic. And if you've been in business for a while, you'll know it's true. You know that if you really want something, you're probably going to have to give up or put off some other things, at least for a time, if you want to get it. And that applies in any area of life. I am not somebody who believes that who believes you can have everything all of the time. You can have everything, but it's got to be sequenced.
Yeah, right. Must get you to speak to my kids. Now, we are talking to Cynthia Dearin of Dearin Associates, who are specialists in helping you succeed, the small business owner, succeed in international markets. Cynthia's written a couple of books on the topic, which we'll talk about shortly, because I'm kind of interested in how you go about marketing your own business. Cynthia, we'll come to that. Tell me the top 3 mistakes to avoid when thinking about going overseas with one's business.
Top 3 mistakes. Okay. So
even just one, what's one? We must get right.
Well, look, the first one is just picking the wrong market. And I know I've spoken about it, but the reason I keep coming back to that is if you get that wrong, until you choose and nail down a market, you can't do anything else. Unless you have a market selected, you actually can't move forward in any part of the strategy. It's not possible to do it successfully. If you get it wrong, you waste time, you waste money, huge opportunity cost, and you can damage the value of the brand. So that is a major one.
Just on that, it feels like a very big dice to roll, because if you get it wrong, the downside's huge. Or am I being overly dramatic?
That's right. No, if you get it wrong, there are degrees of getting it wrong, right? So you could go, well, I'll sell to France or Germany, and those might do kind of about the same job for you, depending on what the product is. So one might be slightly better than the other. But if you go France, Germany, or China, completely different kettles of fish. If you got the Chinese market and it went well, you could just buy several private islands and jets and just fly around the world to your islands. And if it went wrong, then that would probably be the end of your business. So, there are degrees of getting it wrong, but if you're going to put your time and energy and money into this project, you may as well try and get it as right as possible, right? And that's why I think you've got to get your market selection right. You need to use data to do it. Anything else is pretty much a fool's errand. What else? I think making assumptions. That sounds incredibly general, but making assumptions as you go into international markets, because people tend to assume, it'll be kind of like home, but maybe just in another language. And it's not.
Good luck with that. Well, there's that great example of Pepsi launching their new tagline back in the 80s, Pepsi, the taste of a new generation. And that translated in Mandarin to Pepsi brings your ancestors back from the dead.
Yeah, and so, Coke did it too. Coke went to China with the logo, with the Coca-Cola logo transcribed into Mandarin, and they didn't realize that they'd made a slogan that said, bite the wax tadpole. Everyone's like, what? And hundreds
doesn't even make sense.
Hundreds of examples of this, and they then went back and they found new characters that said cookie cola, which was close to the actual sound, the English sound of Coca-Cola, and it was something more around taste happiness. I can't remember what the exact phrase was, but it was something closer to taste happiness.
But geez, even simple things like that are so important to get right. From a marketing perspective, the message, the tagline you use here, maybe the colours that you use here, maybe the name of a product or a promotion or a service that you offer use here.
Even assuming that the business model is going to work. My 2 favourite examples of this are, one, outbound, Bunnings going to the UK. They spent, millions of pounds on acquiring a chain of stores and making them into Bunnings stores in the UK. It completely crashed. They had to sell it for £1.
Do we know why?
Oh, well, I mean, look, there were multiple factors, but one of the key ones was they kind of said, well, Britain's kind of like Australia. And, people use hardware, right? What went really well was the sausage sizzle. Everybody also loved the Bunnings sausage sizzle in the car park. But, the UK is not like Cherrybrook. It's not full of, quarter-acre blocks where there's room for a log splitter and people are spending 9 months of the year painting the house. In the UK, it rains for 9 months of the year and people have a pocket handkerchief lawn. And the arrays of gigantic barbecues and lawnmowers and Dulux washable paint in 133 colours just didn't work the same way because people don't shop and spend the way that they do here. So that was bad for Bunnings. I mean, coming in the other direction, Starbucks came to Australia having opened up in, 100 plus locations around the world and said, Australia will be just the same. They had to close, and this is possibly about 10 years ago, they had to close about 84 of their 100 shops. They took a big multi-million-dollar loss and they had to basically step right back. And there they had assumed that Australians were going to want this American coffee experience. And Australians most definitely did not.
The idea, that's fascinating. And you look at Starbucks or Bunnings. Now, they are companies that have huge budgets to do all the research and data analysis and visiting and whatever they need to do to get it right, they can do. Unlike most people listening to this who, like I said, it's going to be a big, big roll of the dice and you get it wrong, then the downside's huge. Love to have been a part of those meetings in Bunnings and Starbucks where they've gone, Australia, well, for Starbucks, Australia looks like a good idea. You would simply need, a Starbucks executive would simply need to fly to Melbourne or Sydney and see the cafe culture that is Melbourne or Sydney and go, we're not going to work here, guys. But clearly arrogance got in the way because Starbucks is one of the biggest brands in the world and it's like, well, we can work anywhere. They did also open, and I haven't followed this up, but I remember reading a few years ago how Starbucks opened a flagship / concept store in Milan, in Italy, which, again, like, I don't know if it's the home of Coffee Italy, but it's got a big coffee scene. I don't know. Is there just arrogance gets in the way?
Well, look, it's making assumptions, and that's why I say, a huge mistake to make is just do not make assumptions. And the third thing to say on it is the corollary to that is do your research. So, instead of saying, well, I kind of feel like this will work, or somebody said it will work, or my mate over there did that and it worked, so I'll do the same thing, you actually have to go and test. And I guess a fourth thing would be to say, don't try and do this huge, gigantic, like irreversible play where you put all your eggs in one basket. Treat it like a series of experiments. Do everything in a modest fashion. Try and test the market the best that you can using data and just, do it a little bit at a time. If you're going to run Facebook ads into Taiwan, run 4 Facebook ads and A/B split test them rather than running 40, and run them for a month, not for 6 months. Or don't try and launch your entire product line into a market because you think that's the right thing to do. Pick the one product out of your range that's probably going to sell best and be the most profitable and start testing with that.
Yeah, well, that's true. You don't have to do the whole thing all at once, do you? There may be an aspect of your business that you can take over. Importantly, we started talking at the top of this interview, Cynthia, about mindset. Just on that, this is not a strategy for businesses that are struggling locally.
Look, with rare exceptions.
Aussie Bum was struggling locally, but they hadn't kind of invested too much locally and for whatever reason have made it. But certainly the mindset of going, this will get me out of trouble here. I'll just make it big overseas. That's fraught with danger, right?
Yeah, definitely
that's
don't do
gambling.
That. That is a recipe for having to call the liquidator, basically.
Yeah, got it. What are the rules for marketing internationally? We've touched on some of them, obviously understanding the culture, the language, and what works from a copy point of view, branding point of view. But again, marketing here can be vastly different to marketing there. And the assumption that, I'll just run Facebook ads or pay-per-click stuff is you can't just do that. So any tips around marketing?
Yeah, look, I would always, and look, interesting you should say that. We're running a one-day event on this in July called $1 Million Marketing, How to Create International Marketing That Works. The place that you start from, it's pretty much the same place that you start from for domestic marketing, but there are more things to take into account. So, I mean, I would start from the marketing triangle, which I'm sure you know, which has got your market on one side, your message on the second side, and your method on the third side. So on your first side, you need to understand who is my market. And so you've got to have a very, very clear picture of that ideal international client in the target market. And we're not talking generic. We're talking about one avatar for a start in one segment. And, you probably can sell to several segments, and there might be several avatars in each segment, but you've got to delay gratification and go, right, what's the one that we're going to test and get right first? And then you need to understand, what do they care about? What are the goals they're trying to achieve? What are the desires what's the desired end state that they want to get to? What's getting in their way? What are their challenges? And then you need to be able to take all that and make sure your product matches it. And then you need to move on to the message and say, okay, I understand who that ideal client is and how our product can fix stuff for them, make their lives better. Now let's write some messaging. And then you have to write messaging specifically for that avatar and your product for that market. Understanding how they're different and what is different, why their priorities are different to the priorities of your person at home. And it's then that you go around to look at the method. Then you look at, well, what's the channel that we're going to use? And, lots that could be said about that. But you've got a really key and obvious point is you've got to choose a channel that works in that country. So if you want to do China, then you are not going to be able to run Facebook ads because Facebook does not operate in China. You have to use WeChat, and you need to understand that. You need to understand to what degree you'll need to talk to people in their own language. I mean, we know that people are 71% more likely to buy if a web page is in their own language.
Of course.
Would you buy something that was all in Korean that you couldn't read, even if the picture was nice? Probably not. You'd be like, I don't understand what this says, and you just click off the page. I mean, I know I
Depends
would.
if it was North or South Korean. Tell me, it's Australian made. Being Australian, I remember talking to Paul Greenberg, who many years ago, who heads up the Online Retailers Association of Australia, and he was saying at the time, Amazon have an incredibly huge amount of unmet searches for Australian made or based products. People just wanted Australian products, Australian Ugg boots or Australian face cream or Australian honey or whatever it may be. And so there was lots of market opportunities there. Just from a marketing messaging point of view in businesses going overseas, is there a time or is there a type of business that will benefit by saying, the Providence marketing, we're from Australia?
Oh, yeah. I mean, unquestionably. It's still got a great reputation. I have another client at the moment that is in the sustainability and environmental remediation space, and they make a sustainable product that basically mops up spills, and it's for the manufacturing and mining industries. And at the moment, they're thinking through, are we going to keep our manufacturing here because their facility is soon going to be out of space, especially as the international business grows, or do we manufacture offshore? And there's a lot of weighing up to do, because on one hand, manufacturing here is very expensive and proximity to the market is really important. So, they're targeting clients in Asia, the Middle East, and further afield. They need to be closer because the product is pretty large. And they're balancing that against, we know that people want this product because it is Australian made. And so you've got to think about, how do we look at that? I mean, we're looking at that at the moment and saying, right, how can we keep the Australianness of this product by keeping part of the value chain in Australia and still be able to say it's Australian made, but still possibly put the thing together closer to where the end user is. And I mean, a key example of a company that does this brilliantly is Apple. If you turn over an Apple phone, it says designed in California. So nobody thinks of Apple as a Chinese phone, even though that's where it's made. People think of Apple as an American product, and that is all around the way that the story has been told. So I think the storytelling piece of it is incredibly important.
Interesting stuff, Cynthia. Now, you said you had an event coming up in July, which I didn't know about. That sounds pretty interesting. And one day, is it virtual? Is it live? How do people find out about it?
It is in person. It is in Sydney. You cannot find out about it unless we send you a link or an email.
Well, everyone, if you are interested, if we've piqued your interest in taking your business offshore, then you want to go and have a look at Cynthia's site. It's Dearin, Dearin associates.com. And there is plenty of good stuff there. Just moving on from expanding overseas, Cynthia, I am interested in the marketing of your business because you've got a great website. And what I particularly like about what you're doing is you've got great content and a lot of free content for those who are sort of wanting to dip the toe in the water. Ebooks, you've written a couple of books yourself, you've got a blog going on, you've got live events. I think it's fantastic. What for you works best in attracting new business?
I think it's a combination, and I've just said you should narrow down and focus on one thing. And I do believe that, but until you get it established. So I mean, really where we started, I think I probably didn't do as good a job as this, as I tell my clients to do. So, do what I say, not what I do. We use LinkedIn a lot, and we use outreach on LinkedIn. So we have conversations. We don't pitch people hard, but we talk to a lot of people and find out what they're doing, and we create relationships. And that gives us the opportunity to invite people to events and do that kind of thing. Events are a great means of showcasing what you do. So we like to invite guests along to our client events so they get the full experience of what it's like to work with us. So we just give them that for a day. We could charge them a couple of grand, but we don't. We're like, come along and just enjoy the day and get as much good stuff out of it as you can. We do a lot of content, as you've said. And I think for me, it's really about getting people to know, like, and trust you. We believe in what we do and we really stand behind it. But if you're a new business, as we have been, we're kind of moving out of that phase a little bit now. But when you're new, nobody knows who you are, and they look at you and they're like, oh, I wonder if I can trust this person. And that's, especially if you're in B2B, that's the hurdle that you have to jump. I think it's a bit less the case in B2C, but in B2B, people want to know, like, and trust you. So you need to surround the people that you want to talk to and work with enough resources so that they can get to know, like, and trust you without, having to go and search. It needs to kind of pop up and be there for them. And we find that, talking to people virtually, giving them access to content that they can consume and use and take value from, and then inviting them along to come and spend time with us is an effective way of doing it.
Well said. DearinAssociates.com. Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing a topic that we actually haven't covered on this show after, almost 600 episodes. So I'm ever so slightly embarrassed, but we've done it now, and thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show, Tim.
Well, there you go, team. International business lawyer, strategist, and author of Business Without Borders, Cynthia Dearin. Hope that opened your mind about the direction your business may take in the future. So often we can get stuck thinking locally about our business's future growth potential when the answer may well be offshore. Let me know what grabbed your attention from my chat with Cynthia, or maybe you just want to share a marketing idea that's working for you. Call the Small Business Big Marketing Hotline on 0480 015 150, just like long-time listener Ellie did.
G'day, Timbo. Ellie Weisman here, co-founder of a company called Saucy. We manufacture products on behalf of hundreds of e-commerce brands. We've got offices in Australia and China and everything around the world, and we're a Melbourne startup. And anyway, I just wanted to send out a message of love, drop you a line, and just wanted to extend my gratitude, and on behalf of the hundreds, if not thousands, of other founders who have become inspired to start a business from listening to your podcast. So I just wanted to send out a whole bunch of love and good vibes, just for putting out so much gold, just dripping from the airwaves. I can feel it. For 12 years, your podcast, your show is the stuff of absolute legends. So thank you for bringing so much value to all of our lives. Thanks, Timbo.
Hey, thank you, Ellie, for taking the time to call the Small Business Big Marketing Hotline, and very, very kind words of love. My honour to have helped your business and any other business owner that may be listening, brother. That's awesome. Hey, everyone else, be like Ellie and call me 0480 015 150. Next week, episode 600. No party, but just a quiet little celebration. I might have a glass of champagne, while I bring you episode 600. It's with Private Detective Bill Edgar, who calls himself the Coffin Confessor. OMG, it's a pretty mind-blowing interview at a business level, at so many levels. As I said at the top of this episode, Bill signed a deal with Paramount Pictures, who are going to produce a film about his life and his business life. If you really want to sort of spoiler, go and check out the Coffin Confessor on Google, but I can promise you next episode is off the charts. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button, please. And I'd love you to leave a review on your favourite podcast app. Head over to iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher, any of them. It really helps. You'll also find 599 more chats with successful business founders on your favourite podcast app. If you're ready to create some helpful marketing, grab a copy of my book, The Boomerang Effect, over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Supplies are running low, so get in quick. This show was edited by the amazing Alex Amster. Thank you, Alex. The music being written, sung, and produced by rockstar Lockie Doley and made possible by the good people at Dell and Fun Escapes who genuinely care about us small business owners. Thanks for tuning in. May your marketing be the absolute best marketing. Bye for now.